FM transistor with an oscillator, 16 megahertz, to transmit an Arduino tune into a small radio. And this technically is FM. So like, I want to transmit it into FM. It's supposed to, hold on a second. It's transmitting at the moment, but it's in a different key. Okay, so now it's on 96.1 FM. It will come in better. It's on a harmonic. You can barely hear it. It will amplify. But like, if I press this down, on 5:20 AM, it comes in much clearer with higher wattage because it's in the AM. As you can see, it plays on both FM and AM, and this is a really weak amplified signal. But we're testing on a lot of the bands. So 96.1 FM and 5:20 AM, it both plays on. So what's the difference between AM and FM signals? Well, AM is supposed to be amplitude modulation, and FM is frequency modulation. Well, honestly, how do you do the same thing, both AM and FM, in both circuits, if they're actually different? Well, the reason is that amplitude is when you essentially increase the amplitude, which is probably a taller wave of maybe more voltage. Okay, so whereas frequency modulation, when you increase the voltage to input on a transmitter, it should create multiple frequencies, which is what any frequency mixed signal is multiple frequencies. So like amplitude also in this form is also the same as frequency modulation, except the amplitude is increased, whereas it means to increase the power factor of less FM frequencies, so of less frequencies in general. So that means that when we run a signal linear fashion and it turns into a wave, we can transmit the signal in one single frequency that honestly amplifies just the single line of that frequency. But the problem is, when you convert it to sound, it turns into an FM. So what it means is that AM gets modulated into an FM by varying the power of AM's, of an amplitude range of any kind of input that is potentially various frequencies, which is going to be an FM input being put into an AM that is also relative to an FM. Honestly, the only real difference here is basically the amplitude. Okay, and the fact that multiple frequencies are present in both cases, especially in this way where you have an analog transmitter. This is essentially an analog transmitter from the maximum oscillation of 16 megahertz and all of its harmonics, which is multiples of 16 megahertz up to, like, you know, this was 96.1 megahertz. down to 520. It's really not much difference between AM and FM. Really, they both work the same basically. Just amplitude differences in the inputs and outputs, and how you actually modulate that signal to convert it. It's not a whole lot of difference. AM is generally a band of lower frequencies, so you have to increase power in a lower frequency to give it longer range. Because they have lower amplitudes, you raise the voltage to increase the wattage, which is an input amplitude, which is more voltage to increase wattage. Therefore, AM radios said to have a lot more power and amplitude of voltage to actually make a transmission. Whereas frequency modulation, still much like amplitude modulation using multiple frequencies, also has to be amplified to a certain power, but it's less. The higher the frequency of light is, the easier it is transmitted, the farther it is received. So there's really not a whole lot of difference except some voltage, amplitude, and some modulation. It's really not much different. So there's the case on AM/FM.